The combat training hall of the GSS Valiant Dawn hummed with anticipation. Orla stood among 300 cadets from across the Galactic Union, her human frame noticeably smaller than most of the assembled beings. Towering Crithians with their forearms crossed in interest, sleek Vexorians with their crystalline exoskeletons gleaming under the artificial lights, and massive Drogath warriors whose scales rippled with barely contained aggression. All had gathered for the legendary demonstration. Instructor Vector, a decorated Crithian combat master with 17 commendations and rumors of having trained 3 generations of elite soldiers, stepped into the center ring. His 4 arms moved in perfect synchronization, each limb holding a different weapon from various worlds. The hall fell silent. "Cadets!" Vector's voice boomed through the chamber, resonating with authority that made several recruits straighten instinctively. "Today, you witness what your species considers advanced combat. For the next cycle, I shall demonstrate techniques that have taken me 40 standard years to master." What followed was indeed impressive by any measure. Vector moved like liquid death, his 4 arms weaving patterns that seemed impossible. He executed the Drogath crushing spiral, transitioned seamlessly into the Vexorian crystal strike, and finished with the rare Crithian death bloom, a technique that required splitting one's attention across 4 separate weapon trajectories while maintaining perfect balance. The holographic opponents he faced never stood a chance. Each simulation ended in microseconds. The crowd murmured appreciation, documenting the display on their personal devices. This was, after all, the kind of instruction they'd traveled light years to receive. That's when Orla yawned. Not a polite, concealed yawn, a full, jaw-cracking, eye-watering yawn that echoed in the sudden silence following Vector's demonstration. The instructor's primary eyes fixed on her, his secondary pair narrowing. "Cadet?" He consulted his datapad. "Orla Mitchell, human. You find my 40 years of combat mastery tiresome?" Orla blinked, realizing the entire hall was staring. "Oh, sorry, sir. Didn't mean disrespect. It's just..." She yawned again, covering her mouth this time. "My daughter Adam fights harder than that during her tantrums, and she's only 3. The hall erupted in scandalized chittering and growls. A human, barely 5 cycles out of her homeworld, comparing a master instructor's lethal techniques to a juvenile's tantrum? Several Drogath cadets made gestures that roughly translated to questioning her sanity. Vector's mandibles clicked, the Crithian equivalent of a smile. "Is that so, Cadet Mitchell?" He gestured to the ring with 2 of his arms. "Perhaps you'd like to demonstrate your Toddler's superior technique?" Orla hesitated. She genuinely meant no offense. But backing down now would dishonor not just herself, but all humans. And if there was one thing her daughter had taught her, it was that humans, even tiny ones, didn't know the meaning of quit. "Yes, sir," she said, stepping into the ring. The instructor activated a Level 3 combat drone, a standard sparring unit designed to challenge experienced soldiers. "Show us this fearsome toddler style, Cadet." Orla watched the drone activate, its weapons systems humming to life. She thought of Adam that morning, refusing to wear her environmental suit for kindergarten. The memory brought a tired smile to her face. When the drone attacked, Orla moved, but not like the instructor had. There was no elegant form, no practiced technique. She ducked under the first strike with a movement that looked almost clumsy, then came up inside the drone's guard. Her elbow connected with its sensor array, not a proper strike by any combat manual, but delivered with such commitment that the drone's gyroscopic stabilizers shrieked in protest. The drone recalibrated, coming at her from 3 angles. Orla grabbed one of its appendages, ignoring the cutting edge that sliced through her uniform sleeve, and used it as a fulcrum to redirect the entire machine into its own follow-up attack. Metal screamed against metal. "No finesse," someone muttered from the crowd. "Pure chaos," another agreed. But they were watching. Everyone was watching. Because while Orla's movements lacked grace, they possessed something else entirely. Relentless, exhausting, unpredictable aggression. She fought like someone who'd learned combat not in a dojo, but while preventing a small human from eating toxic plants, climbing dangerous furniture, and somehow acquiring knives from locked drawers. When the drone adapted to her pattern, because it had no pattern, she adapted faster. She bit its sensor housing. Actually bit it. The drone's programming had no response protocol for that. "Adam tried to eat my service pistol last week," Orla grunted, twisting away from a blade that would have disemboweled most species. "Had to wrestle her for 10 minutes. She almost won." The drone increased to level 4 intensity, normally reserved for advanced cadets. Orla took a hit that would have hospitalized a Vexorian, rolled with it, and came up with a piece of the drone's own armor plating that she'd somehow torn off. She used it to bludgeon the machine's primary motivator. "She once climbed the exterior of our HAB unit," Orla continued, her voice steady despite the violence. 3 stories in 12 seconds, because she wanted to touch the clouds. The drone went to level 5, combat settings designed for actual warfare. Orla went into full survival mode. Every parent's nightmare played out in her muscle memory. The time Adam ran toward traffic. The time she tried to pet the neighbor's Drogath warhound. The time she found the plasma torch and thought it was a toy. Each moment had required split-second reactions, impossible reflexes, and the kind of desperate strength that only came from one source, protecting something more precious than your own life. She grabbed the drone in what could only be described as a wrestling hold, planted her feet, and with a roar of pure parental exasperation, actually lifted the machine. For 3 seconds, she held a combat drone designed to weigh more than most species could carry, and slammed it down with enough force that its anti-grav generators failed. The hall was silent. Orla stood over the sparking remains, breathing hard, bleeding from a dozen minor cuts. "Sir," she said to Vector, "I apologize if that was disrespectful. But humans don't learn to fight in training halls. We learn because our children are tiny, fearless, self-destructive chaos engines, and if we don't develop combat reflexes by their 2nd birthday, we don't survive to see their 3rd. Vector stared at her for a long moment. Then his mandibles clicked again, louder this time. "Cadet Mitchell, how many offspring do humans typically raise simultaneously?" "Depends, sir. My grandmother raised 6. 6, the instructor repeated slowly. 6 of these chaos engines? Yes, sir. She said the trick was letting them tire each other out first. Vector looked at his 4 arms, then at the destroyed drone, then at the small, bleeding human, who'd just demonstrated that sometimes the most advanced combat training came from the most unexpected source. "Class dismissed," he announced. "I need to reconsider my curriculum." As the cadets filed out, buzzing with shock and excitement, Vector approached Orla. "Your daughter, Adam. How exactly did you name a female child with a male name?" Orla smiled, exhausted. "Sir, Adam is my son. He was assigned male at birth. But honestly, at 3 years old, gender doesn't matter. What matters is that he's got his father's stubbornness and my complete inability to understand the concept of danger." The instructor's 4 arms gestured in what might have been respect or possibly existential dread. "Cadet Mitchell, I would very much like to never meet your child." "That," Orla said, limping toward the medical bay, "is probably the wisest tactical decision you'll make all year, sir."